I tried beating Terraria, but every single NPC is 10 times faster. Everything from bosses to mobs and even town NPCs have been given the powers of immense speed, making the game far more challenging. Will I be able to defeat Terraria, or will Boio be too slow? Well, let's find out. I started off by spawning into the world and having the guide move like a complete maniac. And as soon as I saw this, I realized that this was going to be absolutely brutal. I opened myself a starter bag, got myself the Star Fury and Platinum Armor just to make the start of Terraria a little bit faster, and then I went to explore a desert pyramid. There were no mobs to really stop me in the process of getting loot, so I was very grateful for that. Very soon, I went over to the ocean, picked up a bunch of loot, and teleported home. I built a bunch of NPC houses, and saw my guide absolutely geeking out. I started making myself a elevator, and while digging the elevator, we managed to stumble upon a bunch of fantastic ore. This is where I encountered some mobs, such as the piranha, which was absolutely brutal, and once I came back to spawn, all of the NPCs were moving like crazy. I made myself more houses, continued digging that elevator, and while it was nighttime, as I was running away from the mobs, this is where I probably encountered the first horrifying moment of this entire challenge. The zombies were absolutely ruthless, and they were extremely fast, literally running to me 10 times their normal speed. If these zombies can brutalize me this hard and scare me this much, could you imagine what the bosses are going to be like? This is a little spoiler, but the bosses get absolutely crazy, and this is probably the most ridiculous challenge I've ever done. Anyways, I continued over to the right side of the world, and upon finding myself the summon for the Eye of Cthulhu, once I came back to spawn, I decided to summon it in. It was absolutely stupid. It was just absolutely demolishing me without any chance for me to even get any proper damage on it. Every single time I tried to hit it with the star, it would move out of the way. It was just absolutely raging out. And as I got it to the second form, it literally probably did 10 of its really damaging attacks in like 3 seconds, which completely put me out of commission. And this is where I realized that bosses are gonna be very, very difficult, and I'm gonna have to figure out very creative strategies on how to kill each and every single one of the bosses. I decided to venture down to the jungle, absolutely demolish every single mob that was in my way, and it was kind of actually more like the other way around. The mobs were absolutely destroying me as they were literally 10 times faster than I was, so I had no chance of running away, and if there was a hornet, bro, I had to run super fast because there was no way I was gonna hit it. Anyways, I tried to get myself the boomstick. I got myself more HP within the jungle. That was probably the primary reason I went to the jungle, was to get myself far more HP. And then once I came back to spawn, I made myself more NPC houses, and I actually managed to find the boomstick shotgun, which will help us greatly, and I got myself a fiery mace that dealt far more damage. This is when it turned to nighttime once more, and then using the Star Fury and all of the new HP that I had gathered, I managed to take out the Eye of Cthulhu. Honestly, the only reason I was able to kill it was because I had a bunch of HP, and once we killed it once, I killed it again just to get more demonite ore, and once that was done, I went back to the jungle to try and find more HP. After this, I went to go to the corruption biome to blow up some of the orbs, and then I went to go fight the Eater of Worlds. Frankly, this wasn't too challenging. This boss kept on rushing me with its head, and we were taking no damage due to our platinum armor, so this boss was kind of easy, except he did look very strange. He was moving like a very handicapped worm. I don't really know what was up with that, and frankly, the Eater of Souls were far harder than the Eater of Worlds. So yeah, once I killed the Eater of Worlds, I made myself a bunch of demonite ore and crafted myself a nightmare pickaxe. At this point, I went mining for hellstone, hiding from every single fire imp and demon that got in my way, because those guys were absolutely brutal. And don't forget those bone guys. I forget what they're called. Bone serpents, I think they are. Those guys are atrocious, and they moved super quick. Like, they were literally not even serpents. They were literally just worms that dealt crazy amounts of damage. Anyways, after getting myself a bunch of hellstone obsidian, I came back to spawn, crafted myself the fiery greatsword and the imp staff. I needed every single advantage I could, so I tried to play with any single class I could really get my hands on. I also made myself a full set of molten armor, so that was pretty cool, and this is where I decided to go and challenge Skeletron. I spawned him in, and he was doing this weird maneuver where he would like get stuck in the wall half the time and then like use the spin attack so I could hit him without him hitting me. So I cheesed him using this strategy. All I had to do was just grapple to the top of the dungeon, and in this manner we managed to kill him quite easily. During the boss fight, a meteorite landed, so that was pretty cool, and then I went to go explore the dungeon to get myself a bunch of water candles, but I left the dungeon quite early as we were getting absolutely overwhelmed by all the skeletons there. I crafted myself the Knight's Edge, and then we got invaded by a goblin army. This was absolutely brutal. Just look what's going on screen. There are so many arrows firing at once, and take in, this is just the goblin army. Made it challenging enough. Could you imagine what things like the mechanical bosses are going to be like, or like fighting Moonlord? I was not ready for what was to come within this entire playthrough. I went back into the caves, got obliterated by a bunch of mobs, got myself to full HP, and then I built a massive arena for the Wall of Flesh. I managed to reforge all of my items using the Goblin Tinker, and then once I got myself a Guide Voodoo Doll, I decided to chuck it into the lava and start fighting the Wall of Flesh. For some reason, each one of the eyes got stuck under the lava, and I don't know why this happened, but But once I jumped a little bit higher, the wall of flesh came up, and just check out what happened. It absolutely rushed me at the speed of light, and there was nothing I could do about it. It was pulling me in every single direction, and once the wall of flesh pulls you, you can actually not really deal damage to it, as it completely incapacitates you. It kept on dragging me all the way across the world up until I died. I went to go fight the queen bee, and this boss fight wasn't too difficult, so we took the queen bee out in the same fashion that we took out Skeletron by cheesing it inside of the walls. And this is where I figured out that every single time the wall of flesh actually got stuck on a building, it would move far slower. This time I tested killing the wall of flesh using bee nades, and I was not successful at all, as once again it took me across the world and I ended up dying. This is where I came up with the brilliant idea to kill the queen bee even more so we can get a bunch of bee nades. And after we had a bunch of bee nades, I would try to spam the wall of flesh. This time I decided to actually start building myself a bunch of dirt walls so we can slow down the wall of flesh, and that did not really work out. We still ended up dying. I was very frustrated at this point, and I decided to just start chucking loads and loads of dirt bombs all over the underworld. I essentially made an entire suffocation trap for everything that was in the underworld. Using this tactic, we were still unsuccessful taking out the wall of flesh, so I decided, you know what, I'm gonna go ham and absolutely bombard every single place with dirt that I found in my sight. We did this, and I decided to chuck a Gaivigu doll into the lava and summon in the wall of flesh. I chucked every single bee nade that I possibly could, and as it was stuck, we managed to deal a great amount of damage and finally take out the wall of flesh, putting us into hard mode. Boyo. Do you know what else is hard? That is correct. These new Boyo plushies that are in the description down below, so if you want to check them out, feel free to support the channel. But let's get back into the video. I went straight over to break the demon altars, and we got absolutely rushed by all the wraiths. I blessed the world with palladium, orichalcum, and adamantite, and then I went through the entire pickaxe progression. I got myself the palladium pickaxe, of course, then the orichalcum pickaxe and anvil, and then I made myself a titanium forge and proceeded to get myself full titanium armor and a titanium sword and a repeater. This is where I encountered the very first major roadblock besides the wall of flesh that completely stopped us from making any progress within this entire game. I kid you not, I spent hours and hours on this stage of the game. As we're about to delve into it, and I'm going to show you why this was literally the worst thing you could ever do. Anyways, I tried fighting the hallowed mimic, I think it was, to try to get myself the Daedalus Stormbow, but this was absolutely horrific because it just despawned off my screen. Get ready, because that's going to happen with a lot of bosses. Anyways, see, I thought I was smart enough and I thought I was ready to fight the mechanical bosses, so you know, I crafted all the summons, made myself a massive arena. I went over to get myself a pair of harpy wings by killing a bunch of wyverns, getting myself souls of flight and a giant harpy feather, and of course crafting the wings. After making a massive arena, I went to get souls of night, souls of flight, so I can craft the summon for all three mechanical bosses, and the first boss I decided to fight was the destroyer. This was horrific. I was using with hellfire arrows, and the probes were absolutely destroying everything that was on my screen. I decided to switch to jester's arrows so we can get more piercing damage on the destroyer, and I was cheesing him with the nurse this entire time as well, just to even try to deal some damage to him. There were moments where he managed to bunch up in like one little area and we could deal a tremendous amount of damage to him, so that's where I dealt the bulk of my damage, and we actually managed to take out the destroyer pretty easily compared to all of the rest of the other bosses that are to come in this playthrough. So this was a small step for Boyo, but oh lord, if only I knew what was about to come. Anyways, getting cocky right after this boss fight, I decided to summon in Skeletron Prime just to see how it go and just check this boss fight out. He was just a spinning death trap of hell that absolutely absorbed every single last bit of HP that I had to my name. This is where the nurse started absolutely geeking out as well and just throwing her heals everywhere. That was pretty fun to see. I decided that I had to gear up in some sense, but instead of doing that, I went on to use B-nades to try and fight the twins. I stayed right beside the nurse and just spammed a bunch of B-nades, and honestly, I got pretty close to defeating the twins. I died the first time after trying that, but I didn't have any potions, so I decided to redo it with potions, and I actually got fairly close by defeating the first form of spasmatism, and right as we were about to take it out, I left the place and we managed to die. I repeated this process so many times that you would not believe. I decided to get myself more B-nades. I placed myself like buckets of honey. I was trying to make these like makeshift anti-death pits, but nothing was really working. At this point, I had given up on the game thinking that the challenge was impossible, and so I stopped playing for the longest time. There was another clip of me trying to take out the twins using a bunch of B-nades, and I died again, of course, making me literally quit the game for weeks. I kid you not, I stopped playing this challenge for weeks on end. I had rejoined the world once more to beat this challenge because, you know, I need to get this video out. I don't want to waste a bunch of time on nothing. And this is why I decided to test out the regeneration properties of palladium armor in honey and while standing beside a campfire and a heart lantern. It was pretty good, but frankly, we ended up dying again, so it wasn't really a valid strategy, and this is where I decided to actually barricade myself with the nurse, put myself in honey, and like spam the heals of the nurse every single time I got close. And this actually put me pretty close to defeating the twins, but I wasn't fully there. This is where I discovered a super overpowered strategy where you can get a bunch of explosive bunnies and actually deal tons of damage to bosses using them if they run into them. So I decided to make myself a bunch of cages full of explosive bunnies, and check out exactly how this went. As soon as I got Retinazer to low health, I put him into the bunny trap and he blew up, and we got super close to defeating the eyes, but unfortunately I died. This is where I tried to do it again. I managed to actually take out Retinazer fully, and then spamming B-nades, I completely took out Spasmatism. We took out Retinazer. If I got into any line of sight of Retinazer, by the way, he absolutely just like spammed me like his eyeball was a machine gun. So I had to be very careful and cheesy here. The last boss was Skeletron Prime, and somehow I had to make sure his arms didn't actually hit me, but instead it was his head that hit the bunnies. This didn't go too well, so I decided to make myself a bunch of fireworks. As if you guys remember, there was like this one Happy Days video where he ended up being the entire game using just firework damage. So apparently I tried to do that and it did not work because it was patched probably. But instead of doing this, I just used a bunch of my potions, healed up, chucked a bunch of B-nades while sitting in honey, spamming Skeletron Prime with the adamantite repeater, and using this strategy we managed to take him out. After this, I went to go dig up a bunch of chlorophyte, and our next boss was Plantera, and I had no clue how I was going to defeat her. Apparently, I searched up on the internet how to cheese Plantera, and if you just got yourself the fetid Baknox or whatever those are called, you could actually stand in one spot and just absolutely cheese Plantera. So that's exactly what I did. I got myself like this pit of honey. I healed up after using all of our potions and setting Plantera completely ablaze. We managed to take her out quite easily, and compared to all the other bosses, I thought this was going to be much harder, but you know, I had no clue that Plantera had such a cheese strategy. Also completely forgot to tell you, but we had turtle armor, so that made things far easier, and after this we were able to go and fight Golem. Within the lizard temple, we were getting absolutely demolished by all of the lizards that were rushing us left and right, front, back, center, so that was loads of fun. And after I built myself an arena and I came back home, I crafted myself the Knight's Edge and the Excalibur, and in order to craft myself the Terrorblade, I needed to get myself the Broken Hero Sword, which of course drops from Mothrons. Another thing that I wanted to get was the Psycho Knife, as that was another fantastic way to absolutely cheese golems, so I was either going for the Terrorblade or the Psycho Knife. I managed to get the Psycho Knife, and once I got it, I tried my best to defeat Golem. Of course, that barely worked and I ended up dying, so I decided to kill the Mothrons, get myself a Terrorblade, make myself a bunch of explosive bunny traps, and then try to fight Golem again. I died, and I retried once more, and this time we actually managed to blow up like half of him, and then actually finish him off with a Terrorblade. We managed to get a Pickaxe Axe, so I can take his altar all the way over to my spawn and make it far easier to defeat him later. This would later grant us a full set of beetle armor. I got myself like the best accessories I can get, and then I went to go fight the lunatic cultist. I tried to take out all the cultist worshippers and then placed bunnies above where I thought the lunatic cultist was going to spawn, and as soon as he spawned, he did not spawn where I thought he was going to. So once again, I waited for the next day to come around, and then I tried to do the same thing in the place where I thought he was going to spawn again. Once again, this didn't work either, and we just could not take lunatic cultists out if our life depended on it. I tried to beat this boss so many times and I got stuck on it, so hate me for this one, but I did go on God mode to take this boss out. Frankly, it was literally impossible because he was glitching the ground, and if I wasn't able to cheese this boss using God mode, this video would not exist. If you do have any other creative ways of one-shotting lunatic cultists, please leave it in the comments down below, so then you can flex how much better at the game you are than me. Anyways, once I totally beat the lunatic cultist legit, all the pillars fell down and every single one of the mobs was attacking me like there was no tomorrow. I went to go take out the vortex pillar, and what I mean by that is die over and over and over and over again. I went to go cheese the vortex pillar by trying to use the death sickle, and this was an interesting sight as all of the mobs kind of like piled up on top of each other, and so I did this to take out the vortex pillar. I went to go take out the Stardust pillar next, then we took out the solar pillar, leaving the nebula pillar for last. We took out the nebula pillar, and then here spawned in Moonlord. I went to the exact place where I tried to beat the mech bosses, and having the nurse right beside me, I kept on healing with her, but eventually the nurse ended up dying to Moonlord, leaving me with literally no hope. The Moonlord was spamming his lasers like every 3 seconds, and there was literally no way I could avoid them, so I ended up dying, of course. If you can actually no-hit this boss, I will send you 1,000 euros over PayPal. If you can do this mod and no-hit the Moonlord, your money is going to be sitting in your bank account. Just saying. Send it to me personally in the Discord in the description. Anyways, I decided to go and get the Zenith to fight the Moonlord because there was no way. I died so many times to Moonlord and this was literally impossible. So I thought, hey, I'm gonna get myself post Moonlord gear and try to defeat this boss. Bunnies weren't gonna work against it. Nothing else is gonna work against it. The fireworks are patched. There's physically no other way to defeat this boss. So using the Zenith, I of course died, and then I tried to take him out again while choosing the nurse with the Zenith and full solar armor, and this time we managed to do it. We took out his core and we finally defeated Terraria, but every single NPC is 10 times faster. Consider checking out another video like this on screen. Drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Follow my socials. Consider subscribing to the channel if you're new. This has been Boyo. Peace out.